This is Mindy Patterson with the Cavalry Group for New Territory Media. The following is my interview with Monica Weldy, owner of Bearadise Ranch and Preserve, the exemplary model for those who exhibit and travel with their animals. It has become apparent in recent years that the animal rights ideology has embedded itself in the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, the very agency that Monica Weldy is required to be licensed under. Subsequently, it has become alarmingly obvious that the animal rights ideology is influencing both policy and enforcement to the great detriment of Monica and other Florida animal owners and animal enterprise, an ideology which should have no place in any regulatory agency overseeing animal-related businesses. My following interview will explain. I'm here with Monica Weldy of Bearadise Ranch and Preserve here from Florida. Monica, welcome.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with me today. There's a lot going on in your life and has for quite a few years in terms of direct attack on your animal-related business with your beautiful bears. Can you share with our audience as we build up to the main issue here? I want you to share with everybody a little bit about your background and your life at Bearadise Ranch. How did you jump into this career and this way of life?
Actually, I've worked with the bears 40 years. They've been in my late husband's family for over 92 years. My husband's grandfather and grandmother came from Norway back in 1946. They came with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. They had a trained bear act. And they were on Ringling in 47, 1948 seasons. And then they went into Hollywood and trained the bears for Walt Disney movies and TV shows.
Amazing. And at what point did you move to Florida?
Well, fast forward to 1980. I was a theater major in Los Angeles, California, Granada Hills, actually, the Valley. And my girlfriend's mother is a choreographer, dance choreographer. And she said, Monica, there's an audition coming up for some dancers they need for production numbers for a circus. And I said, a circus? Interesting. I'd been to the Ringling Circus when I was 13, and I fell in love with Gunther Gable-Williams. And I said, sure, I'll go. It sounds like fun. So I went and auditioned in California, in Hollywood. And they chose me and 5 girls and made all our wardrobe in Hollywood and flew us to Fort Myers, Florida, for the rehearsals. And it was for the Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus that went throughout the United States, traveled throughout the United States. And they chose us. We had the rehearsals there in Fort Myers. And I was walking to the building for rehearsals, and this young man pulled up alongside me on his motorcycle and asked me if I wanted a ride. And he looked pretty friendly, so I said, sure. So he gave me a ride to the building. Well, he turned out to be my husband for the next 37 years of my life, Johnny Weldy. He is 3rd generation of the Weldy family to have bears and train them for different things. He loved bears. They're our bear family, bear lovers.
Incredible. So, you know, I've known you for quite a few years, and it's safe to say that you are the ultimate bear experts. Your family, your late husband, and you. I mean, as long as I've known you, you all have been the premier bear experts in the United States. It's just phenomenal.
Well, thank you. When you live and work with an animal like this 365 days a year, 24/7, it's not a job. It's a passion. It's a love for the animal, the concern that goes beyond your animals. It goes for their cousins, the wild cousins. And yes, our bears were entertainers, but also they're educators. Mm-hmm. We educate the public about our bears and what bears face in the wild today. So many are threatened. So many species of bears are threatened or endangered. So it's important for people, the public, to learn about them. And I feel private ownership, responsible animal professionals like my family are an asset to the future of bears, because people need to learn about them up close and personal. They gain it. It sparks an interest in conservation and a caring emotion. So
absolutely,
it's important for people.
And you share that knowledge and that understanding about true conservation of animals and the importance of private ownership when you do these exhibits on the road?
Yes, definitely. Actually, my husband and I worked in a zoo in New York for 16 years. And we also took our educational outreach program to different state and county fairs throughout the country. We've done commercials, movies. We've done everything with our bears over the years, and everything that it goes back to the bears for our facility, for the care of our animals. I mean, they're our life.
At what point in your career, how long ago was it that you first learned about the difference between the animal rights ideology and true animal welfare? I mean, there's a huge difference between the two. At what point were you made aware of the animal rights movement and how they were wanting to destroy animal ownership?
I first got introduced to the animal rights organizations and movement back in, I would say at least 20 years ago. We were at a fair in North Carolina, and a local fair goer did not like that we brought our bears to that county fair. So she contacted PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. And they wrote a letter to the fair board and basically told them the bears should not be there. But the fair went on with our bears. But that was the first encounter, and that's my introduction with PETA. I learned about them and their ideology.
And that was 20 years ago.
Yes. And I realized I learned more about them, of course, as time went on, their agenda, and all of the animal rights organizations.
And clearly it has escalated through the years and has
definitely
come to a fever pitch. I would say certainly within the last 10 years, they've gotten involved legally, legislatively. They are in our school systems. They are working every single day to alter Americans' views about animal ownership and animal use. And that's why what you do is so incredibly important in informing the public in what you do, what you love, and showing people the difference between animal rights and animal welfare. I know that you have gotten involved legislatively you've been a huge help on that front in fighting legislation that wants to whittle away at our rights and alter things that way. So it's impressive how you have jumped into the fray on that. But with your own personal experience and protecting your own livelihood and your own way of life, I mean, this isn't just a job for you. This is your way of life. These are your, these bears have encompassed your existence for decades, and you have just been under this constant battling and this crescendo of this attack by the animal rights groups. So let's go to the next topic, which is tell our listeners a little bit about the agencies that are tasked with regulating you as an exhibitor. So you're obviously regulated at the federal level by USDA and at the state level by Florida Fish and Wildlife. Talk a little bit about how, the requirements are pretty stringent and extensive, and the oversight and inspection process, just briefly.
Well, USDA is a bit different with Florida Fish and Wildlife. They have their own rules and regulations. So we have to comply with both state and federal, yes. USDA, you have to apply for a permit, and you have to renew it yearly, as well as Florida Fish and Wildlife. They both are a yearly renewal, although those things might be changing now because USDA is modifying that and maybe going to a 3-year renewal, I believe it was. So that's yet to be seen right now. But Florida Fish and Wildlife is a yearly renewal application that you fill out and send in. My family, Johnny's family, the Weldy family, has been regulated. Well, they've owned bears a lot longer than than USDA and Florida Fish and Wildlife have existed, but that came into, they started to regulate captive wildlife back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And both USDA and Fish and Wildlife. So they had to acquire a permit, of course. You have to show your expertise with these animals, your husbandry, your experience, and then you will get a license. You are subject to unannounced inspections by both agencies. They come and check your facilities, the health, well-being of your animals. You have to show veterinary records because you have a veterinarian that you have a relationship that checks on your animals several times a year, or comes to, if your animal's sick, comes to treat them. But yes, you live with these agencies. I mean, they don't go away. They don't just give you a permit and you don't see them.
Right.
I mean, wherever you are, whether you're at your home facility or on the road, if you're a traveling exhibitor, you get inspected, surprise inspections. So don't let animal rights people tell you that we're not regulated.
Right.
Because we are.
Right.
And it's very strict regulations. Yes.
Yep. Vigorous.
Yep.
And they are unannounced inspections. Would you say it's safe to say that, and I know the answer to this, of course, but would you say it's safe to say that the animal rights ideology has infiltrated into the regulatory agencies?
Definitely. I've seen that over the years. I've seen that firsthand. And yes, very much so. They're everywhere now. They're in our bar, our lawyers and the law schools, and they're everywhere. They're getting in, trying to infiltrate their propaganda to children in the schools,
right,
to tell them that dairy is not nice and your mother shouldn't feed you meat. That's murder. I mean, they're trying to, infiltrate all that into our schools.
So they're
everywhere. They're like a cancer.
So the very regulatory agency that you are required to be inspected by is infiltrated by an ideology that wants to see you gone.
The end of animal ownership as we know it.
Yes.
And that's right down to Fluffy, Fido, and your little kitty.
Right. So, what are you supposed to do? You're required to be, have a license with these agencies, and yet they have welcomed in this ideology that is incrementally doing away with you. I think that's really an important point here for the listeners and viewers to understand, is that you are required to be USDA and state licensed under the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, and yet they have allowed the infiltration of an ideology known as animal rights that is against everything that you do. But you've remained in compliance. So now they're poking the bear, so to speak, and they are basically requiring you to make changes to your facility. So let's go to the next phase here. When did the most recent, in your renewal, wasn't it back in February, you applied for a renewal of your license with Florida Fish and Wildlife? And let's talk about that a little bit and how things led up to where they are today with Florida Fish and Wildlife, specifically at the state level.
First of all, my family has high standards.
Mm-hmm.
We have always complied with both USDA and Fish and Wildlife for as long as we've been regulated. Always gone above and beyond what they require by the law.
Yep.
For our facilities and for the care of our animals. We've never had citations, violations. We have a very good record, a clean record, and a very good reputation in the animal world, in the animal business. When I lost my husband, Johnny, 3 years ago. He passed away suddenly and unexpectedly, but I wanted to carry on our family business and his legacy. I mean, I'm not going to let it die with him after 92 years. I love these animals. They were our passion together. They were our life together. And I got my license. I was licensed with my husband while he was alive. And then after he passed away, I had to, my license was just with my name on it. I got it. And then back in January, it was up for renewal in February. So I sent it in January. And I didn't hear anything. It usually comes in February, usually about 3 to 4 weeks later. And I had gone to the Florida State Fair with my bears. I have been there for 23 years with our educational exhibit. And I came back after the fair and there was no license here. I got an email from one of their officers that handles the process of the application. And she did say that I had forgotten something. So I sent it to her right away. And she emailed me back and said, everything's fine. It'll be in the mail. So I expected my license to be in the mail. We came into March and I was going to the Sarasota County Fair with my bears. And due to COVID, that's when it hit, the fair was canceled. And I was already there with my bears, set up with my exhibit. So I packed up and I came home and I expected to see my license in the mail. It was already March, no license. So I called, I believe I called my inspector back then in March and just inquired. And he said he had to come out and just take some pictures of my facility. And I thought that was a little odd. I said, okay. So he came out, took some pictures. And I remember asking him, can you answer me where my license is? And he said he had to talk to Tallahassee. And then I got a really funny feeling because everything was a go as far as I know. I didn't see any problems. And so he went and he left and this was the end of March and there was still no license. And I inquired again in April, and in May I got my denial. So they actually took that long to notify me that they were not going to renew my license. I got a notice of denial of my renewal.
What was their reasoning for denying your license?
The initial reason, I couldn't believe it. They said I violated the 90-day rule. A 90-day rule is when you apply for a fish and wildlife license, there's two categories. You check one or the other. Either you are a mobile exhibitor or you are a permanent facility. Well, my husband and I traveled with our bears, so we were considered a mobile exhibitor, since we took them to different venues like state and county fairs, commercials, whatever we did. And we've always been that. So I was a mobile exhibitor. As a mobile exhibitor, you have to move your animals every 90 days to be legal. Well, that's easy when you have a lot of work with your animals. You're going in and out. You leave your facility, you go do something, you come back. So you're leaving it. We always complied with that 90-day rule. Well, they say I violated it and I hadn't. And this was COVID now, okay? So I have lost, just like everybody else, I've lost all my contracts for the year 2020. So I'm not the only licensee staying home right now,
right?
Without work. But I always complied. So I would load my bears up and I would take them on a little trip to another facility, like Big Cat Habitat, whatever it is, another facility, and get them off the property. All the bodies have to be off the property. So I did, and I've documented that to stay in compliance, to prove to them that I'm still in compliance. So that was my mobile exhibitor's license. But as we went on, they actually told me that I had to apply for a permanent facilities license. So I had to reapply with another application, and I did. Then they started saying, well, your facility is not in compliance as a permanent facility, so you have to make changes. You have to make, from an 8-foot fence, you have to go to 12-foot fencing. They said I had too many bears in my bear house, my main bear house. So my remedy was to build another bear house and remove some of the bears and move them over to another bear house to free up the square footage that they said I was short. So I've done everything that they've asked me to do here, everything. And they kept promising my attorney and I that they would give me my license if I did this. In the middle of the construction, they sent 2 officers to come and check out the construction. And they said after they come, they would give me my license. They came and went and they never gave me my license. Then they came up with this agreement that I had to sign, basically saying, when you sign this agreement, we will give you your license. Well, when I read the agreement, I said, what is this? First of all, why do I need an agreement with the state of Florida and Fish and Wildlife when I've done nothing wrong?
Right.
They call this a settlement agreement, but I've never been in litigation with them. So what is there to settle? I have no violations. I have no citations. I've done everything they asked. I've complied with everything. Why do I have to sign an agreement? And what was in the agreement is just not negotiable. My attorney said, I do not advise you to sign this.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not an ignorant woman. I could see on my own that I should not sign this. I'm signing my rights away.
Right. And
The
so
content is just ridiculous.
So they're just moving the goalpost. They're continuing to change things
They
up.
kept
And
moving the goalpost.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
I've seen your facility. It's like a park, beautiful setting. Any bear would want to live at your place. It's absolutely remarkable. Talk a little bit about your facility, if you would, your preserve for your bears, and also talk about what the hoops that you've jumped through in the last few months to update through construction per the requirements of Florida Fish and Wildlife to accommodate their requests, only to be reaching this settlement agreement. Talk a little bit about your landscape for the bears, and then I'll roll some video for the viewers to see for themselves as you describe it.
Well, my husband and I always believe that our bears should live like bears. Yes, they are trained and they go out to the public, and we use them as education. But we also believe that they should have a home base where they could live like a bear. So we built Bearadise Ranch Bear Preserve. It is a natural habitat facility, and our bears can swim in a pond, climb a tree, run in the grass, dig if they want, just be a bear, but although they're just bears, they are a bear first. We respect them for that, and they still love the interaction that they have every day with my family and myself. They thrive on that. That's probably the greatest form of enrichment for our animals, is the relationship that we share with them, the love, respect, communication, the touch, the training. It's all a part of that, and they thrive on that, physically and mentally, and that's very important to have a happy animal. So we built Bearadise Ranch, natural habitat. We let people come by reservation to see our bears and learn about them. We have right now all brown bears. 5 of the bears are bears that were born in our family. I actually raised them with my husband. We had the mother and father, and then we've also taken bears in that need homes. Mm-hmm. So we have a happy bear family.
Knowing that you exhibit and travel around the country, it's really a gift that you all have shared with so many people to learn about conservation and learn about your bears. Talk a little bit about the modifications that Florida Fish and Wildlife required of you to make changes, with the promise that you would receive your license. Touch briefly on that.
It's been a huge undertaking. We've been on this project for 4 months now, and we're nearing the completion. It's summer in Florida, so we have to work around the summer storms and the threat of hurricanes. So it's very wet this time of year. Having concrete poured and having welders welding can be dangerous when there's lightning and thunder going on. But we are doing very well. My husband taught our son to weld. Luckily, he's very knowledgeable in that and very handy. I've had a lot of friends who have volunteered of their own time and effort to come out here and help with the construction. Mm-hmm. And I can't thank all the people that have come forth and helped me and my family with this unbelievable task. If my husband was alive, of course he could have done even more quicker, but to get people that are offering their time and effort to come out here, and I appreciate that. I can't thank them enough. But it's been a project, and it's still ongoing, but we're nearing completion now. We built another bear habitat with another secondary bear outdoor habitat and bear house. So the only thing I'm going to be working on now, we're finishing up the roofing and some of the caging in the bear house. And then I'll be putting pools in. Florida Fish and Wildlife requires pools in certain habitats. So they have to have water access all the time. So I'll be putting some pools in. And hopefully I'll be calling them to come and see the finished product.
So you've jumped through all these hoops at great expense, tens of thousands of dollars, and only to receive this settlement agreement that you still are not receiving your license. So do you sense that PETA is in the background of all of this holdup with your license? I mean, they have actually done some saber rattling to say that they wanted to confiscate your animals to take to a so-called sanctuary. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. They sent me a letter saying they were ready to pick up they knew that my renewal was denied for my license. And so a few days later, they sent me a letter and said they were ready to pick my bears up and take them to Colorado to an animal rights sanctuary where they could live free. And they would let me come and visit the bears.
Oh,
How nice of them.
Monica, what's the difference between your facility and a so-called sanctuary?
No difference, really. I don't like the word sanctuary. Certain words, certain vocabulary that animal people used to use has been hijacked. They've been hijacked by the animal rights organizations. They've turned these words into bad words. Mm-hmm. So there's certain words that I don't use anymore. Mm-hmm. My bears live in loving human care. But the difference between a sanctuary, a real sanctuary is actually a place where a safe haven where animals can live, but nobody comes to see them. Okay. My preserve is a bear preserve, and my bears are safe here, and I control the amount of people that come here to see my animals. Mm-hmm. But and they live happy and well and fun and fat, and that's what I want my bears to be, happy and healthy. So I guess between a sanctuary and my facility is a real sanctuary you don't have any public coming to. Mm-hmm. And my mm-hmm. facility, I bring them, but control it by reservation. So, and it's, like I said, it's important for people to learn about these animals.
Absolutely. Well, as you even pointed out, it's a word game for the animal rights groups. And I didn't mean to set you up there with the definition of sanctuary or any of that, but they hijack all of our words. The animal rights groups hijack our words and use them against us, because a sanctuary, I've seen some of these so-called sanctuaries where these animals are essentially stolen from private owners, and they go to Pat Craig's wild animal sanctuary in Colorado is the perfect example, where the animal rights industry has organized a seizure of someone's private property and all of their animals, which are going to Pat Craig's facility in Colorado, where basically it's all under this false premise to steal their animals and destroy people's animal related businesses. So they take their animals, they're seized, and Pat Craig is the perfect example of someone who remarkets these animals to raise money. And PETA is in the background making all of these arrangements for the theft of someone's animals. And it's extremely concerning that PETA has been colluding with these government regulatory agencies that have required oversight of animal related businesses. And so that's what needs to be said out loud here. And that is, quite frankly, the way the mob operates. It's like organized crime. And I think we need to really point that out to everybody watching this today, that this connection is happening on a daily basis to people like yourself, Monica, that undergo this constant terrorism from these animal rights groups with the threat of stealing their animals and taking them away from them under false premise and putting them someplace that they're basically saying, well, this captivity over here, and I know we don't like to use the word captivity, but this captivity over here is better than your captivity. So we're going to steal your animals and put them in this facility where they will have no human interaction whatsoever, know, as you said earlier with your bears, you participate in their daily enrichment. There's touch, there's interaction, there's constant care. To have that removed from their experience and going into this sterile environment of a so-called sanctuary, which is anything but what Americans view as a sanctuary. A lot of these Global Federation of Animal Sanctuary facilities are cold, sterile, barren. And so, you know,
No stimulation.
they're lying to the American people, taking their money, betraying the American people who believe everyone loves animals. So they're being told that they've rescued, saved these animals from dire circumstances. But really what they're doing is they're stealing people's animals and remarketing them to raise money on their back of someone else's animals to fill their pockets. And
yes, Mindy, I call it the great animal rights scam.
it really truly is. And this, what you're undergoing is really frightening. It's alarming because you know all too well what their end goal is. And so to know that the government agency has you in a place where they're not reissuing your license, you have complied with all of their requirements and always have been in compliance. You've never been out of compliance. You've done everything they've said to modify your facility, and here you are, you're being denied your license repeatedly. You know, and the Cavalry Group has launched a request of your governor, Governor DeSantis, to investigate Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission as to the infiltration of the animal rights ideology. I looked last night. I noticed that there are over 23,000 emails that have been sent to Governor DeSantis, and yet we have not heard one peep about any the hope of an investigation into the Florida Fish and Wildlife. You know, you've reached this point where you shouldn't be forced to litigate to defend yourself as a lawful business that has complied with all of their requirements. This is absolutely outrageous. It's outrageous, and it's more government corruption that we're seeing unfold on the nightly news. This is just an extension of what we're seeing on a daily basis, and they're taking advantage of that corruption for their own financial benefit, meaning the animal rights groups. And I have to say too, listening to you talk about your bears, it is so obvious, and I hope it's obvious to all the viewers today, PETA and the Humane Society of the United States and these Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries have zero expertise or authority over animals. You are the expert. You are the rooted in daily animal husbandry practices, and these animal rights groups have zero expertise in the understanding and husbandry of animals. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Definitely. When you live with an animal like we have, like I said before, 365, 24/7, and you're their provider, their caretaker, their partner in life. They are partners. We are partners together. Yes, it's a big responsibility to take care of a bear. And it's not just one bear. You know, we've had many different species of bears over the years, and always more than one. But it's a huge responsibility. But the knowledge that I have learned from my husband and his family, we have carried on to our children, and they work around animals. You know, it's a family business. We are a legal animal enterprise. Yes, I am the expert, not Florida Fish and Wildlife, not PETA. Yeah. They are not the experts of my bears. I know what my bears need and want. And they shouldn't have to tell me how to care for my animals.
What's happening to you has happened to other animal-related businesses in Florida and other parts of the United States. I mean,
Mindy, I know for a fact, I am not the first to be attacked like this from our regulatory agency. I won't be the last. I have spoken with others that have been attacked like I am being attacked right now. And it's not going to end unless we have, like you said, the governor call for an investigation or an overhaul into the overreach and the abuse of power, because this is outrageous. I'm a legal animal enterprise. I've done nothing wrong to warrant this kind of action.
Amen.
I haven't slept. I'm getting, it's very nerve wracking,
Taking
because
its
to have
toll.
the threat having the threat looming over my head that my animals are threatened to be taken away from me because they won't give me my license is something that is very hard to live with. I never ever dreamed this would be happening to me in my lifetime, especially with my husband being gone. And I know that he wants me to keep fighting. I know for a fact, and I will. I'll fight to the end for my animals. They are my property. Whether people believe that our animals are not our property or not, they are my property. I care for them. I provide for them. I am their sole partner in their lives, and I will fight to the end to keep them.
Governor DeSantis needs to take action on this and protect his citizens from this kind of overreach and abuse of power by the Florida agency. You know, there are other animal related businesses in the state of Florida who have the same oversight and are likely getting the same pushback. It's interesting because those businesses bring revenue into the state of Florida. Tourism is huge
Definitely.
in the state of Florida.
Yes.
He should take.
I'm a founding member of the Florida Agritourism Association. Yes, we do bring tourists here. They do want to come and see my bears.
Yeah.
I've been shut down throughout this whole construction process, so I have nobody coming here right now. But I get calls daily and emails. When are the bears going to be open? When are you going to open up again? People love animals. They want to come and see them in a happy environment and learn about them at the same time.
Yeah.
I have 98% of the people out there love animals and want to see them in this kind of environment. And my business has always been a success. And I just want to be left alone and do my job and just enjoy the rest of my life with my animals.
Amen. Monica, as we close this up, what's happening to you right now? What does this mean for the rest of America? What does this mean for Americans? What's happening to you could literally happen to anyone. What is your thought on that?
The animal rights movement is a strong movement. They're well organized, well funded. You can't believe the lies that they spew about animal ownership, whether it's farm animals or exotic animals, the zoo, dog breeders, carriage horses. I mean, everybody's under attack.
Yep.
And their agenda is to end all animal ownership, all the way down to your dog and cat and your goldfish in the bowl. So people need to wake up and not donate to these organizations. Like I said before, they are a scam, and not give them your hard-earned dollars, because your money is not going to animals. That we have to stop these people from getting funding.
Yep.
And spreading lies.
Have your lawmakers, your local state representative and state senator and U.S. federal representatives helped you at all? I know you've reached out to them.
State representatives have written letters to Fish and Wildlife, yes. I'll be talking to them again and keeping them updated on what's happening, what's transpired in the last 24 hours. Mm-hmm. But it's a battle. I'm battling Goliath.
Yes, yes.
It's like David and Goliath. But don't forget, David won.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to give up.
Well, Monica, you hang in there. You are my hero. You've done an amazing job in every step of the way in battling this overreach of government. And thank you for sharing your tale with us and your stories about this battle. It's just crazy. And we'll do a follow-up when you have succeeded in receiving your license. But we really appreciate you sharing this today.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you, the Calvary Group and the Penalta Law Firm, and all the people that have supported me and my animals through this ordeal. It's not over yet, but I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the support and letters, phone calls, everything from friends and family and just people who love my bears that have been to Bearadise Ranch. So yeah, thank them all.